The babysitter who never came back. The phone was already in her hand when the window latch snapped. Janet froze. The living room felt too quiet, like the house was holding its breath. She pressed the phone to her ear and cranked the handle, the way you had to do in old houses, and she whispered, "Operator? Please." A cold wind slid through the cracked window, making the curtain puff like a ghost taking a small breath. The latch clicked again, once, twice, and the window edged upward a finger's width. Somewhere in the hallway, a floorboard gave a long, thin groan. "Police," the operator said. "What is your emergency?" Janet didn't scream right away. She could hear the toddler's soft snore in the back bedroom, steady like a tiny train. She could hear the clock tick, tick, tick. She could hear the window rise another inch. She swallowed hard and said, "Someone's in the house." Her voice was tiny, but it was real. "Please, come quick." A shape moved behind the curtain. The air turned colder. The operator's voice sounded far away now. "Stay on the line." Janet took one step backward and the phone cord pulled tight, a thin tug like a warning. She looked toward the hallway where the sleeping child lay. She looked at the window where the curtains swelled again, slow and careful, like a person breathing in and waiting to be seen. "Please," Janet said again, and this time her voice broke. "Hurry." And then, just as the operator asked for the address, the living room light flickered once and the window jumped up another inch with a soft wooden pop. The curtain lifted like a pale hand. Janet's breath caught. She clutched the phone, and a sound came out of her throat that wasn't a word, not yet. A thin, bright sound that makes other people move faster. Somewhere on the other end of the line, someone stood up. A chair scraped. A pen hit paper. "Stay with me," the voice said. "Help is on the way." The clock ticked again, louder this time, like it wanted to be the only sound in the room. That is the highest point of this story. That is why people still talk about the babysitter who never came back. But it didn't start with the window, or the cold air, or the phone. It started with a normal night in a small city, and a girl who said yes when a neighbor needed help. Columbia, Missouri, 1950s. Winter had been hanging around too long, like a guest who doesn't know when to go home. The streets were damp. The sky was the color of dishwater. The houses were neat and close together, each with a porch light and a front step that creaked the same way every time you used it. Kids walked home with mittened hands. Moms stirred soup. Dads snapped the newspaper to the sports page and made little noises when they didn't like the scores. Janet was 13. She was careful and kind and good with small kids. If you asked her to help, she helped. She saved her babysitting money in a jar and counted it by tens because that felt like the grown-up way. She liked humming along to songs on the radio, and she liked the way a house sounded once the baby fell asleep, quiet but busy, with the heater talking to itself and the floor telling secrets when the wind changed. That night started simple. A neighbor needed to step out. "It'll be an early night," they said. "He's already in pajamas." The little boy had a stuffed dog with one ear bent the wrong way forever. He liked the way Janet read, slow and warm, making the words sound like walking and resting at the same time. She packed a book and a sandwich and a sweater. She called her folks to say where she would be. She told her friend she'd drop by the next afternoon to swap comic books. "Don't forget," her friend said. "I won't," Janet said. The house was familiar to her. The front door's lock was fussy. You had to jiggle the knob just right. The hallway smelled like clean towels. The living room had a heavy lamp that took a second to warm up before it got bright. The big window looked out at the yard where the same two trees had been standing since before she was born. In the kitchen, a note on the table said, "Help yourself to pie." In the back bedroom, the toddler was already yawning so hard his eyes watered. "Tell me the dog story," he said, and Janet did, folding the blanket just so across his small chest. "Again," he said when she finished. "Tomorrow," she said. "Sleep now." She smoothed his hair and watched his eyelids close like the slowest kind of sunset. Back in the living room, she settled on the couch. She took one bite of pie and then covered it with a napkin because it felt rude to eat when the house had gone so quiet. She opened her book. The lamp hummed a little. The clock said 8:30. Outside, the wind pressed against the porch and then let go, like it wanted to check if anyone was home. Nothing felt strange at first. This is important. People expect a warning bell, a sudden heart lurch, a sound you can point to with a finger. But the first warning was tiny. The door latch on the hallway closet didn't sit flat. She noticed it only because the door made a tiny kiss sound, touching the frame, letting go, touching again. She stood and clicked it into place. "Stay," she told it, like you talk to a dog who wants to run out. She read 2 more pages. The lamp hummed again. The house made a soft settling sound, the way old houses do when cold wants to come in and the walls say no. She got up and checked the windows, not because she was scared, just because she was the kind of person who checks things. Each latch sat straight and shiny. Each lock was turned down tight. When she got to the big front window, the curtain lifted just a little in a draft she didn't feel a moment ago. She pressed her palm to the corner of the glass. Cold. Too cold. Lows come tucked between highs, so you don't know which is which until later. She sat back down and told herself that cold was just weather being rude to old wood. She wrote a little note to herself on a scrap of paper about homework. She started to hum, then stopped so she could listen for the soft kid breath in the back room. It was there. Steady. She checked the clock. 9. She got up and called her parents from the kitchen phone to say the little one was asleep and that she'd be home before midnight. "We left the porch light on," her mom said. "That makes it easier to find your way." Janet smiled. "Okay." When she hung up, she stood for just a second with the phone still in her hand. The kitchen window over the sink showed a thin slice of yard and the line of bushes along the fence. For a second, the bushes looked like they were standing up. She blinked, and they went back to being bushes. "Stop it," she told herself, trying not to laugh at her own nerves. She set a pot of water on the stove for cocoa and then turned the knob off again because something in her said, "Not tonight." She went back to the living room, to the big lamp and the book and the soft couch that suddenly felt the wrong kind of soft. That is when the second small thing happened. The clock on the wall hiccuped. It didn't stop. It didn't chime. It just did a tiny skip like you feel on a record when the needle isn't happy. She looked at it. The second hand kept moving. "Okay," she said out loud to the empty room. "Okay." She hadn't pulled the curtains all the way closed. A thin slice of window still showed the yard. She could see the left-hand tree, bare branches scratching the sky. A car far away coughed and fell quiet. The wind made the thin slice of curtain tremble. She stood and pulled the fabric closed. As she did, she heard a sound people almost never hear anymore. A footstep on the porch outside, careful and slow. She didn't hold her breath on purpose, it just left her. She waited for a knock. None came. She waited for the porch board to creak again. It did, but farther along, like someone had taken a second step and then changed their mind. She went to the front door and checked the lock. It was set right. She put her hand flat against the wood and felt nothing but the quiet of a house doing its job. She took 2 steps back and almost laughed to herself. The laugh didn't come all the way out because of the next sound, which was the smallest sound of the night and also the one that made her move. A tiny, faraway tick-tick, like a fingernail against glass. Twice. She turned her head toward the big window. The curtain, which she had just put to bed, lifted a little at the bottom, like a cat paw testing the corner of a blanket. "No," she said, but very softly, like she didn't want the word to get big and turn into something else. She went to the phone. Not the kitchen one. The living room one with the long cord. She lifted the receiver, put it to her ear, cranked the handle, and asked for the operator. She gave the address. She said her name. Her voice steadied because saying your name steadies you. "I'm babysitting," she said. "I think someone is outside. Or maybe inside." There is a kind of silence that comes when someone else is listening hard on the other end. She heard it then. "Help is on the way," the operator said. "Can you stay with me?" Janet looked down the hallway toward the back room. The toddler had turned on his side and was making a little sleep whistle. The sound made her brave. "Yes," she said. "I can." But she moved the phone with her, the cord following like a thin tail, and checked the back door lock. It was good. She checked the small bathroom window. It was latched, but she pressed it anyway. Her finger made a squeak she didn't expect. She looked at the latch and saw the smallest sliver of wood where the paint had rubbed off. Old houses have scars. That's all, she told herself. Scars. When she came back down the hall, she heard it for the first time. The living room window latch, moving not because wind wanted it, but because hands did. The sound was nothing and everything. A click that you could miss if you liked being asleep. Someone's at the window, she told the operator. Her voice was very calm now because it had to be. Please hurry. Stay with me, the operator said again. Police are on their way. Janet stood in the middle of the living room and did what kids do when they are older than people think. She made a plan. If the window opened, she would run to the back room, pick up the toddler, and lock the door. She would push the dresser in front. She would climb out the tiny window if she had to. She would take the little one to the neighbors. She would not scream unless screaming made more help come fast. She put the plan in her pocket, like a small folded map. The curtain moved. The window rose another inch. The cold pushed in the way water sneaks under a door when you're not looking. She wanted to close it, but closing meant getting close, and her plan said, don't get close. Tell me a color, the operator said, gentle and strange. Tell me anything. Blue, Janet said. The word felt silly and strong at once. The curtain is blue. Good, said the voice. You're doing great. Tick, 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 said the clock. The window latch, patient and careful, made its own reply. She took one step back and her heel bumped the base of the heavy lamp. The bulb blinked politely and then carried on. She said, it's okay, and she didn't know if she was talking to herself, the operator, or the small sleeping child. But the next minutes were long in a short way. The window opened enough to make the curtain lift and fall like slow waves. Footsteps on the porch boards traced a line that wasn't straight, like someone was mapping the house from outside with their feet. In the kitchen, the pot she hadn't used made a tiny ping noise as metal cooled. A car passed 2 streets over and didn't notice this house. A stray dog barked twice like it had remembered something. Then the high again, too high for a heart. The window jumped a little, not much, but enough to say that someone knew how to lift old wood the way you learn by practice. The curtain rose and stayed, like a breath that never ends. A shape stood behind it, quiet and tall. Janet didn't run. She didn't faint. She did the most important thing she could do. She pulled the phone cord without thinking, making the receiver scrape a little across the table so she could back toward the hall and still keep the operator in her ear. Please, she said. Now. Stay with me, the operator said, faster. Help is very close. The floorboard in the hallway gave a sigh. She turned her head just enough to keep the shape in the corner of her eye. The back bedroom door was still and closed. The little sleep whistle had turned into a stronger, deeper breath, the kind kids make when they are far away in a good dream. She reached the mouth of the hallway, and that is when the living room light finally did what old lamp bulbs do when they are tired of being brave. It flickered hard enough to go dark for one long second. In that second, the curtain lifted higher and the window slid a little more and the cold took a full step into the room. She gasped. Not because she was weak, but because air gets surprised too. The lamp came back on in a lower glow, like light with a sore throat. She saw the curtain fall. She saw the window in a place it had not been 5 minutes ago. She saw her own hands on the phone turn paler because the room had become a colder place to be. Tell me where you are now, the operator said. Tell me where the child is. Back room, she said. He's sleeping. Good. She took one long breath to make the small shaking stop. In the breath, the clock on the wall made one more tick. She looked at the face and saw that the minute hand had finally reached the place where the front door should open and people should come in and say, "What's going on here?" The door did not open. But she took another breath, and that is when she heard it. The closet door in the hallway, the one with the fussy latch, making that tiny kiss sound, touching the frame, letting go, touching again, as if a draft had learned a new trick. She stared at it. The latch moved a hair. The kiss became a small click. Someone's in the hall, she whispered. Police are close, the operator said. Stay with me. Keep talking. I'm going to the child, Janet said, and she did because plans are made for using. She stepped toward the back room and the closet door kissed, 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 and then stayed quiet the way a mouth does when it decides not to say the thing it wanted to say. She opened the bedroom door just enough to see a small shape under the blanket. The stuffed dog with the bent ear had fallen to the floor. She picked it up and put it in the crook of the child's arm. He made a tiny sound and then went back to deeper sleep. Brave is not loud. Sometimes brave is closing a door carefully. She stepped back into the hall. The closet latch was lying flat again, like a thing pretending to be well-behaved. The living room curtain had stopped moving. The window sat an inch higher than it had an hour ago. A new line of cold lay across the floor like a mark left by an old river. The phone in her hand gave a soft buzz as if the person listening wanted to tap her shoulder. "Hello," the voice said. "Stay with me." "I'm here," she said. "I'm not leaving him." "Good," said the voice, softer now. "Good." And then, as if the house wanted to choose the time itself, the front porch board gave a deep, clear creak. The kind that says not just wait, but decision. The knob of the front door shivered. But Janet did not run. She did not cry. She held the phone so hard her knuckles went white, and she took one step toward the door the way you take one step toward a friend who is sick. She said into the receiver, quiet and sure, "Please." "Now." "Right there," said the operator, breathless. "They're right there." The knob turned a fraction. The lock held. The knob turned back. Silence fell the way snow falls, everywhere at once and too soft to catch with your hands. The clock made the loudest tick of the night. Somewhere outside, a car door shut. A voice, far away, called to another voice. "Ma'am?" someone shouted from the street. "Police." "Here," Janet said into the phone. She took another step. "We're here." The front door knob settled. The porch board spoke again. The curtain shivered. A soft sound came from the glass, like a fingertip trailing away. "Ma'am?" the new voice called, closer now. "At the front." "Yes," she yelled, strength finally snapping loose from the place she had tied it down. "Yes." But before she could reach the chain on the door, before the porch boards could give the bright little joy cry they make when help stands on them, before the knob could turn to let anything safe inside, the closet latch in the hallway made that small kiss one more time and then clicked open in a way that was not careful, not kind, not a draft at all. The closet door began to swing, and the front door rattled in its frame as someone from outside tried the knob one last time.